I'm Oliver Bruce, dyslexic and dyspraxic serial entrepreneur with little more than one GCSE, but none of that matters. And that is exactly why I started this podcast. I've built multi-million pound businesses from just an idea, and I've gone into markets that I've got no right to be in. No! It's not always plain sailing, and what you see on social media is often a fraction of the reality. I somehow wanted to tell the candid truth, the story around startup and scale-up life, and just how important mental agility and strength is in this largely idealistic and fake world. I hope you enjoy my podcast and can take some solace and some learnings from the unspoken reality and subjectivity of the term success. This is Success is in the Mind, and thank you so much for watching. How did you change that business so much over such a short period of time to take it from what Ben did through to the £1 billion it is now? Welcome to another episode of Success is in the Mind, our award-winning podcast, where I speak to owners, entrepreneurs, and notable individuals who have overcome barriers, mentally and physically, to become the successes that they are today. Are you just simply chucking everything at it?
Because I think people say, oh, we're completely transparent, and that's absolute bollocks. At the moment, everyone's a CEO. They start a brand up and I'm the CEO. My mom took me, was going to have me in an orphanage, and I was born, and then decided she couldn't give me away.
Wow.
1959, that was quite a big thing for my mom to do.
Are you fully comfortable sitting in a board meeting and going, I don't understand?
I learned a lot at Gymshark about just looking for the right things and asking the right questions.
And what are they?
They'd got a business that looked like it could take off, but didn't know what to do next. Find something weird and keep saying it, you will get an advert come through.
You will. If you just play this podcast loud enough, you get a load of HERA adverts come through.
I'd been a supporter of Birmingham City for a long time. Quite funny because we'd not been in the Premiership for 16 years. I was there 6 months and we went up.
This is Success is in the Mind, and I am Oliver Bruce. So, Paul, thanks so much for coming on the show.
No, thanks for asking me.
So, I want to go back a little bit in terms of your career, because you've done great things over the last couple of years, but where you started, before you joined your parents' business, what were you like as a kid?
Always crazy for money and doing jobs.
Were you focused on the cash?
Yeah. I mean, I sort of stopped playing football so I could work for my dad on a Saturday.
Wow. Okay.
So it was always about, in essence, it was the money in those days, because that was the, it was your currency to buy some clothes or whatever you needed to buy.
So what did your dad do back then?
So my dad was, I don't know what we might call him. I'll say a bit of a rascal is probably an understatement.
Wheeler dealer.
He was. He went to prison in 4 times.
Oh, he did it properly?
Yeah, over the years for all sort of petty stuff.
Right.
But he was always trying to, be a bit of a Del Boy type scenario. So nothing serious, but just that sort of thing.
What did he do? Did you learn from kind of how he sold things?
He was a market trader originally. And if you flip the story back a little bit, sort of my dad was, as a market trader, good looking guy. And you're supposed to say out and see that.
Yeah.
And he met my mom.
Yeah.
And, they sort of got together.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few months later, obviously, she was pregnant.
Right.
But my dad legged it then, being what it was. Yeah. He sort of legged it. And my mom took me, was going to have me in an orphanage.
Right.
And got me there, and I was born, and then decided she couldn't give me away.
Wow.
So it sort of started from there. He's the way he was, in terms of a bit of a rascal. He eventually came back and eventually settled down. But in 1959, that was quite a big thing for my mom to do.
But how did that, in hindsight, make you feel? Because you must have learned that as you got older. You didn't know that initially. When you found out you essentially nearly went to an orphanage, then you got taken back, and your dad was still kind of a bit of a wheeler dealer.
I was just grateful. I mean, we had a great life. We travelled around a lot. Their first house was a caravan, a 2-berth caravan that my mum never knew about where it came from, hooked up to the back of a van that was on a pub car park.
Seriously?
So that was the first place they lived apart from my mum's parents.
And so that was essentially your family home?
Yeah. Wow. And it was somewhere in Cannock, I think, somewhere.
Really? And then, so it went from living in a caravan through to first house was bought through what means? Was that through buying and selling?
He did the wheeler dealing.
Yeah.
He got himself in trouble a few times. And eventually, and my mum sort of said to him, you do it again.
Yeah.
And I'm not waiting around. She'd waited 4 times, bless her. Then I think he got a grocery store, I think, at some point.
How did he get that then? From nothing? How did he?
I don't know. He was a blagger.
Right, okay.
He would just blag things and managed to, sort of the gift of the gab and talk things and got going. And then he eventually got like a coffee house, like a cafe, you're baking an eggs and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's where they sort of started, and he started to go on a little bit of the straight and narrow.
Right, okay.
And that's where it originally came. So that's where I would work on a Saturday, sort of making toast and doing all them sort of things.
So how did you not go off the rails slightly? Because so many kids who have parents that do things rightly or wrongly kind of mirror what they do, I suppose, whether that's sort of, unconsciously or consciously. How did you not go into the world of,
I think what I saw was that he wasn't a bad man.
Right.
He was, and my mum has told me this because I've discussed it with her.
Sure.
He would always put food on the table. He liked a cigarette and he liked to drink.
Right.
But it was in that order. It was food on the table. As long as he had some cigarettes, then, and if he got any more left, he'd have a drink.
Yes.
But he always put food on the table. So he's actually a good man.
Yeah.
That from that point of view. So I saw someone who I believed did what he did to survive.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately got caught because he wasn't that good at it.
Yeah.
But I think that taught him and then taught me was being able to maneuver and think outside the box and, just work things out. There's always a different way to try and do something. Yeah. Although, you shouldn't be breaking the law, and I'm not, saying you should.
No, 100%. And interestingly, I suppose family is quite important to you now with HERA. You've got your daughters that are working in the business, for instance. Obviously, you got that from your dad, who cared massively about you. But one of your first main jobs was actually working for his waste business, essentially. You pumped out of school, went into work for him full time, and you kind of grew it with him from that point. Talk to me about that journey.
He was, again, a businessman on the back of a fag packet. He knew how to work hard and get things done. But what he didn't have was the view for the future and how it looked. So, we'd have many rows where we had, I think we had something like 6 trucks, skip trucks at the time. He'd gone into skip trucks then, skips and things. And they're always breaking down. I was one of the mechanics. I'd work day and night. I think the most I've done is 4 days and 3 nights straight. Okay. And it was always like that. And it was really hard work, very, very hard work. And I was trying to persuade him, I think I was about 19 at that point.
Right.
I'd been in the business a while, that we should buy some new trucks and they'd be more reliable and et cetera, et cetera. But he didn't like debt. So, it had to be cash and he wanted to pay for it.
Had to be outright.
Yeah. And so I think at 19 and a half, I left. I said I'd have enough. And I came out of the business. And sort of almost every day for about 12 or 18 months, I went to work at Lucas as a factory. Right, okay. So I did a factory life for a while, just for an easy life. What
was that, sort of picking and packing sort of thing?
It was in fuel injection.
Right, okay.
Yeah, in fuel injection. So it was a factory, literally a factory. But to me, it was, I've got to get out of all the hassle. I want to see what it's like to have a normal life. I did that. And then at some point I went, right, okay. He said, I want you to come back. And he kept saying to me, and I'll only come back if we do this, and this. And that was, we buy 2 new trucks. Right. We invest in this, we do that. Yeah. And he did it.
Because that's kind of the story of your life to a certain extent. Not change management maybe, but arguably coming up with a plan which actually is more sustainable for the long term than the person that initially founded the business might have thought.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the very first one I did, where it was, if we change things, and this is what I see is, we've got 6 trucks, we'll cut them down to 3, but 2 of them will be new. They won't break down. We can do the same. We only got 3 drivers, so it's less cost, et cetera, et cetera. And that I think that was the very first thing, but it was a battle of wits for a long time.
Before we get back to the podcast, I wanted to ask you, are you a high-growth startup or an ambitious entrepreneur? Our headline sponsors, Capsule Cover, are the perfect insurance specialists if you are geared for high growth. Here at PinPoint Media, we use Capsule Cover for all our insurance. So if you're an ambitious, high-growth startup, why not reach out to them via capsulecover.com.
I'd been a supporter of Birmingham City for a long time, knew the commercial guys there really well. And it was a point when David Sullivan was having a little bit of, not say trouble, but, you know, the fans didn't understand him and didn't particularly like the board at that time. And they were in the Championship as is now. Quite funny because we'd not been in the Premiership for 16 years. I was there 6 months and we went up.
Do you think then in that case, Paul, that you can learn to be an entrepreneur? Because you've kind of gone through, your dad was a wheeler dealer, fine. You bought, you sold, you left school, you joined the business, you left to go and work for somebody, but you always came back to that lifestyle of entrepreneurialism. Can you learn that, or were you born with it?
I think I reckon it's a little bit of both.
Right.
I reckon you're born with a sort of will to succeed, and, you know, maybe it's competition, you want to be the best at playing football or whatever it might be. So, you know, you've got that competitiveness inside you. Resilience, I think, is really, really important. Yeah. You've got that resilience of, you know, getting knocked down and getting back up again. And then it's harnessing and I think learning as you go along, because that's massive, you know. But I don't think you know everything day one. And most of the stuff you learn by your mistakes.
Yeah.
But I think now, you know, there's videos, YouTube, books. We're on a podcast now for people to try and learn things. And that's fantastic, because before, at my age, you didn't have that. You had the TV. Yeah. I think there was 4 channels. Maybe a
was it all in black and white,
point.
or was there colour?
Probably, yeah. Riding on horses and carts and things.
Exactly.
But you didn't have the sort of, you know, the ability to learn like you have now.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's actually a really good thing or not, whether there's sometimes too much.
Well, I was going to say, do you think people get complacent and naive that actually they just assume they know it all now, because it's just constantly out there?
At the moment, everyone's a CEO.
Yeah.
They start a brand up and I'm the CEO.
Well, there's the hashtag on TikTok, isn't there? The CEO of X, Y, and Z, whatever it is on TikTok.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think you've got to earn that, because, you know, it's what I see of a CEO is someone who's, you know, visionary and looking far into the future. The managing director is the guy that does it every day, but it's a little bit old-fashioned, I suppose, now. Yeah, but that's what we all aspired to be when I was young. I want to be the MD. That's the thing to be. And all of a sudden now, you know, they start a brand up and I'm the CEO. I'm like, you know, you're selling 3 things a week.
Yeah.
You know, but that's just the way it is.
Do you think it's sort of almost cultural as well? Because in the US, CEO is essentially what an MD is, really. I mean, you've got VPs, presidents, X, Y, and Z, but depending on where you are in the world, depends, I suppose, on the title.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, you know, with No Waste, I was, you know, vice president of this and president of that, and it was all a little bit different. But I think conceptually it's the same thing. You know, if you start something up, you're in the nitty gritty every day. You know, I can't see that you're actually the CEO by then.
But at what point do you remove yourself then, Paul, from the business? Because you have CEOs that are constantly in the business, running it from a day-to-day point of view, and then, you know, now, for instance, with you with HERA, you have that kind of almost objective view where you do step back slightly and you let it run and you touch base occasionally. So many people that start up find it difficult to let go. How did you learn to do that?
That came at an early age, because I realised you couldn't expand without doing it, without trusting people. And so, for instance, when I went into waste and I wanted to expand, I needed different depots to cover different areas, and therefore I had to have a manager for that depot. So I would give that to someone I trusted. You know, it wasn't today where, you know, it's a massive interview process. It was probably one of my best drivers or my foreman or someone I could trust from that point of view. But I realised early doors that you can't expand otherwise unless you've got people to do it. Now, you know, there are different ways of doing that, and generally, you know, in businesses it's hiring people who are better than you at certain things. But just in that case there, that wasn't the case. It was I needed coverage and I needed to trust them, and trust is a big thing with me.
And in terms of that kind of I suppose the management process, the scaling process, you joined your dad's business, you sold it, but the sale didn't kind of go as well as I suppose you'd have hoped, really, at the point that you sold it to the US.
Yeah, sold it to the second largest company in the world. They were called BFI at the time, American. Sold me the American dream. You'll be doing this, you'll be doing that. We'll just leave you to do what you want. You know, took me to the States, showed me these guys who were running their own businesses in the States, but they'd been bought out. So they were sitting on money and they were running their own business and they're getting freedom. What I didn't know was when they were coming across the sea to do it with us, is they weren't going to trust us to do it.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it didn't go as well as expected, but and in fact, it did for the long term, because what I did was they had a huge accounting, software, stats package, which I absorbed. Then I restructured it and used it on my next company.
Absorbed from a knowledge point of view.
Yeah. And got it reprogrammed and did everything. So that when I started my next company up, which was I sold in 89, started in 92, I had a whole operating system ready to go, which I never had when I sold the first one.
So, I mean, the first one, did it make any sense financially for you guys? Did you make any money? Was the earn out completely defunct? Did it just not
No,
work?
it was, the fact that it didn't work for me was the worst thing, because it worked for my dad. My dad sort of retired at that point.
Okay. Well,
He only survived 1 year after that. He died a year afterwards.
I'm sorry.
So, but he wasn't.
Was that because you think he just switched off and there was no
No, he smoked 100 cigarettes a day.
Sponsored by Marlboro.
Yeah, it literally was, and that was it. So he just basically, his veins just closed up.
Okay, that's a good excuse.
But he had a year of it, and we'd done something that he was probably really proud of.
100%.
He never probably thought he could ever do that. I think in them days back in 89, we turned over 2.2 million and we sold it for 2.2 million, which in them days was a huge amount.
Today's money, that's a good return.
It's good. Yeah, it was great for us. And again, I treat everything as a journey. So it wasn't, it didn't quite work out as I wanted, but it did for him. He was secure. My mum was secure money-wise for the rest of her life, in a sense. And then I'd got money then to be able to move on, bought a house, and then I'd got money to start the next business 3 years later.
So you reinvested, but in terms of when you essentially became a millionaire in 89, which is what so many people want to do when they start a business, how did that change you as a person? Did you wake up the next day and go, right, okay, I'm sorted, or did you go and hedge it all?
It's a bit of an anticlimax, to be fair. And I've heard that a lot, but it's actually true. Is once you've done something and you've reached a peak of some description, you've got to be really careful, because you sort of come off the cliff afterwards. And it's like, okay, now so what?
Yeah.
What does it change in me? I had a decent lifestyle anyway. It probably meant I could pay my mortgage off at that point or whatever I'd got. But it didn't dramatically change me. But it was the anticlimax was, okay, I'm 29.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
I think it wasn't enough to be the be all and end all.
Even though you were driven by money in the early days when you were a kid, when you had money, you at that point didn't care about it.
I think care about it from, securing your family.
Yeah.
I'm very big into family, as we said earlier, and securing things and making sure everything's safe. So I'm very protective by nature. But it doesn't, it's not always the money, because, sometimes the returns that you get for the amount of work you've put in over time just don't match up.
No.
And then other times they do, so I don't think you can always do it for the money. You have to do it for whatever's there at the time, whatever's driving you.
So, I mean, what was the next step then in Paul's life? Once you sold the business 3 years later, what did you do at that point?
I started again a waste business.
Because you wanted to focus on keeping busy.
Yeah, what I saw was, I just saw that the company that bought me weren't doing what they said they were going to do. There was still a massive market and I could capitalise on it. So then I started again, which is a company called City Waste.
Yep.
And took that.
Grew that well, though.
Yes, that was the one where I had all the managers and different depots. Yeah. And, that went really, really well.
Yeah. And that was a business that you scaled to?
That was around 11 million turnover.
And then you exited
5 depots, exited from that in 2000.
So that was the start of really that investment journey, where you could take the cash, hedge a lot more, and invest and advise.
I'd got a bit fed up with having one company at that point and thought I could do better, thought I could do different things. And
how did that go in terms of diversifying your focus?
Yeah,
was that a good move?
Not as well. It was harder than I thought, to be fair. And I probably wasn't, ready for that as well as I thought I was. And I'd had a really good company and it was set and I knew what I was doing. But it was the right time to do it.
What made you sell it though? Why did you sell it? Because if it was going well, what's the point?
At that point, I'd got one company and I was a little bit fed up with, I think I can do more.
Yeah.
And
it's not going to work.
The offer at the time was very, very good. At a time when the market was a little bit depressed. And I didn't want to stay with that one. The idea for that one was I'd move on completely and I would go and do this sort of dream of a group of companies and do various things.
You had the group dream as well. Yeah.
That was what it was. Yeah.
Did you have a family at the point at that time, or was it very much just you?
Yeah, I'd got married in 2089. Okay. Yeah, I was married to 2 children at that time.
Okay, fine. So you didn't plug them into the business at all. It was just you running it at that point. You didn't have family.
It was just myself.
I suppose they were too young at that point.
Too young. Yeah.
But in terms of when you went away and wanted to focus on that group, how did you A, do that, and B, when did you realize it wasn't going to work? When did you realize that a group is not the right idea?
Probably a couple of years in.
Okay, so you had a good
I had a good go. We're doing, we took a company that we bought a company that was a chemical waste company.
Yeah.
I bought a company that was taking petrol station forecourts apart and all the tanks out, which is quite complicated.
Yeah.
And I'd got into a few things that I didn't know enough about. So I wasn't invested as well as I thought I would be.
And was that because you were naive enough to think that you knew it all because you'd built a few businesses, made a bit of cash?
Golden touch, where you think you can just touch it again and it'll just go. And I thought it was easier than it was. And I'd always been sort of very intensely invested in my businesses, and I was trying to do more of a loose touch, and it wasn't quite working. But it was okay, went okay in the end, but it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah. In terms of, I suppose, going back to the waste management and the fuel, etc., they say that there's money in muck. What a lot of people don't go into that world because they think it is just too gritty, too hardcore, just not interesting enough. What actually motivated you within that world to get up in the morning? Because it isn't the most glamorous thing in the world.
No, it's definitely not glamorous, and it's really tough. Some of the things you see on TV and documentaries are true. It is a case of you have to stand up for yourself. Otherwise, you'll get bullied. You have to be tough. The margins are really, really tight. It's capital intensive. So it's built on really, really hard work. But again, for me, it was also about bringing innovation towards it. Because it's everyone does the same thing every day. So for instance, at the time, building sites only ever had the normal builder skip. And Tarmac, for instance, a very big company at the time, they're not around now. They'll just have loads of skips on a site, and it would all just be dumped in. And we sort of realised that recycling and everything was coming on board, so we just transformed it and put loads of different type of containers in. That was the first time on any building site in the country that different types of containers have been put on, so that the builders themselves had to sort them out into the wood and the cardboard and the bricks and stuff like that. And that sort of transformed it, and that's the way it's run today. Because,
your life then did become more glamorous, even though it was wheeler dealer, it was, selling skips and building materials and working on site, for instance. You then became chairman of Birmingham City Football Club.
Yeah, I was non-exec there, so that was a really interesting story. So I'd been a supporter of Birmingham City for a long time, and I'd had a relationship with them commercially, so I knew the guys there. So there was a guy called Simon, and knew the commercial guys there really well. And it was a point when David Sullivan was having a little bit of sort of, not say trouble, but the fans didn't understand him and didn't particularly like the board at that time.
Right.
And they were in the championship as is now, and they called. He wanted to sell the club. And at the time, he wanted £20 million for it, and no one, there's no takers. So he asked Simon and said, "Well, is there anyone who's got like £1 million and is willing to have 5%?" So Simon came to me and asked me, and I said, "Well, not really. It's 5%. It's £1 million. It's not really what I want to do." And anyway, Karen asked to see me. So I went to meet Karen Brady, which I'd always wanted to meet anyway.
She was in before you?
Yeah, she was there. There was David Sullivan, David Gold, and Karen.
Right.
Karen's story is incredible. It's a fascinating story. I mean, a podcast with Stephen Bartlett recently.
Yeah. I've heard that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So met Karen, and we got on really, really well. And in the end, asked me to make an offer rather than it was a fixed deal. So I made an offer. And she asked me to go on the PLC board rather than the football club board. So I was part of their PLC as their non-exec for about 2 or 3 years, and I think about 3 years. But quite funny, because we'd not been in the Premiership for 16 years. I was there 6 months, and we went up. So they called me Lucky Paul at the time. So that's what it was.
I mean, what was the offer then that you put on the table for them?
It was a smaller amount of money,
right?
But it was my my time. Fine. So, I wasn't willing to put the investment in, because a small amount like that was not what I wanted to do.
No.
So I think it was that we got on. They wanted someone locally that could help them with the local businessmen, the local community, and know people and get some trust, which we did. We started to pull some sponsorship in. it made it easy. Then we went to Premiership. That was a much easier job to do.
Yeah.
But it was still, gaining the trust of the locals to say, these guys are okay. David Sullivan's a great businessman.
Well, I was going to say, do you think it's with businesses or organisations like that, for instance, football, they're more focused on the vanity, i.e. kind of the brand, the football, the sport, than actually the sponsorship and the revenue that sometimes would allow them to maybe not focus as heavily on what you did, which was make them fundamentally more money?
Yeah, football clubs are really hard work.
Yeah.
Financially, if you look and you'd run away.
Yeah.
So unless you're a super fan and you're, super rich, they're very difficult to want to be.
Not going to make an offer for Chelsea, then, are you?
No, I don't think so. But they're very difficult from that point of view as a business person to think I could be just throwing money away. So, if you're going to get involved in it, you've got to get involved for the right reasons. David Sullivan, David Gold and Karen's morals and their reasons were good. So I saw that it wasn't just for the sake of it. They had good intentions. If they would loan the club money to buy a player, they would just want it back. And that's reasonable.
Without a return on it.
Yeah, not, a reasonable return. It was nothing. So, everything was done above board. It was just that I just don't think, the football fans are it's quite difficult because they want all the time and it's trying to please everyone all the time. And you get to realise you can't. So you've got to do your best and have the right intentions. I think today, it's about engaging with them more. I don't think that in those days they were engaged as much. And I think getting engaged with them today would be a much better way of doing things and getting some opinions, but also, being as honest and as transparent as you can. Yeah. If someone buys Birmingham City at the moment, for instance, it's unlikely to be a super rich Arab or an inscription who's going to just
could be Ryan Reynolds though. He's you
never know. But again, they've not thrown loads of money.
No, they haven't.
There's a lot of it's money going in and not really coming out. It's hard. But again,
it's a passion project.
A lot of them, I think, as you just said, if you're aiming for the Premiership, it's about if you're involved in a football club, that's all anyone wants to speak about.
Yeah.
They don't care what other businesses you've got. Yeah. They all want to speak about football no matter what. And the Premiership sort of just lights everyone's eyes up.
Yeah, 100%. And in terms of when you were Ned for Birmingham City, what were you doing around that from an entrepreneurial business standpoint? Were you still diluted in terms of advising, investing and growing, or was it very much just focused on lifestyle?
By then, so I took on All Saints.
Yep.
That was just around that time. So, and that was just a bit of a fluke story. As a friend of mine called Mick Dunn, who used to be the MD of Reese Menswear.
Yeah.
A lifelong friend. And he'd invested in All Saints in Birmingham and had all of his money in it and, sort of his life savings. And then he called me one day and said that All Saints had gone into administration.
Right.
So, and he was sort of fraught. He didn't know what to do. It was like, I've just lost everything.
Was that his life forever?
He'd come from a position at Reese, which was comfortable, to going all out on his own, which, he's an operator. He's a really good operator.
Yeah.
And he just didn't know what to do. So just luck would have it. I knew the administrator at the time and got in touch with them. And I basically facilitated the purchase of it. Mick and a guy called Stuart Trevor were three partners in a sense. I literally didn't do a lot at that point. It was just the money and some guidance and some advice on things, whereas they did the majority of the work in terms of the design and then the running of the business.
Right.
And that was then at the same time.
You then famously went into Gymshark. You were one of the catalysts to where they've got to now, albeit the one that maybe doesn't get the notoriety. How did you change that business so much over such a short period of time to take it from what Ben did through to the £1 billion it is now?
A lot of it was they'd got a business that looked like it could take off, but didn't know what to do next. They had an accountant who shouldn't have been an accountant. I don't think they had any insurance. It was a fun business to them. It was a laugh. They were earning money. They were having a great time. All the things that as a 19-year-old really should be doing. They shouldn't be taking it too serious.
It seems you've been quite lucky in terms of who you know, because you've gone through quite a tough upbringing with, multiple different things going right or going wrong at the point you were born through to the point that, you sold your first business. But being patched into Birmingham City, speaking to the founders of Reese, buying them at low cost, growing them, etc. A lot of stuff's just kind of landed on your palm, really, has it not? Or in your hands?
I suppose you've got to be there to take advantage of it, though.
Yeah.
It's what they say about luck, isn't it? Something about, opportunity well planned or something. I can't remember. But I think loads of things come your way. It's whether you're willing to jump, Do
you often say no?
Probably not as often as I should. My daughters and my girlfriend would tell you that.
Yes.
So, recently I should not be doing all the things I'm doing, but I'll do them.
Yes.
The opportunities, you've just got to be able to, and again, it's evaluating them really quickly. You could have said no to Mick, and then someone else bought it the following day and it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes that ability to just go, I'm going to go with it. It's my gut. I think it's the right thing. And I think, business is a lot of that. It's always nice to get all the numbers around it, but sometimes you just haven't got time.
You just got to take a punt and hope for the best to a certain extent.
I think
I've done it. A few have gone wrong, some have gone well. I think it's
get more than right. That's all you've got to do.
And
you're successful. It's as simple as that.
It's true.
People focus, I think, especially today, they focus on, I think, with social and everything, that everyone's getting it all right all the time, and they're not.
No, I'm really quite pissed off with LinkedIn because it's constantly looking like everyone's doing better than you are. But the reality is, that's how they want to be perceived.
Yeah.
Social media is a dangerous thing, but arguably for some brands, it's really important.
Look, social media is as dangerous as people want to make it and use it.
Yeah.
So it's not using itself.
No.
It's how you use it, how much, how much you believe in it, and see through it or not. I think it's a fantastic and it's an amazing thing. I'm not keen on all the algorithm manipulation.
No.
And I think a lot of people aren't, because they find it a bit unfair that, if you've got 100 followers and you put something out, 100 people don't see it.
We're quite, yeah.
Which seems a bit unfair, really. But, they have their reasons. I think, everything is how you use it. Having a drink, most people is okay.
Yeah.
But to some people it's not because of how they use it, whatever it is. So again, it's much the same. And I think it will be one of the new, and probably is one of the new or newest addictions.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And in terms, I suppose, of addictions and how the world has changed in your career, things have gone, and we spoke about it earlier in terms of offices. During the pandemic, everyone's kind of thrown the towel in and gone, we don't need offices, we'll work from home and that's fine. But, and you very candidly said, but you think in 2 or 3 years' time, that's going to be a huge mistake. People are going to say, actually, we need to have offices because fundamentally we can't hire the staff because we haven't got them. Yeah,
I mean, I'm a massive believer in it's what's the best for the company, because the company's there that's paying salaries and wages, first and foremost. I don't know how young people are going to learn if they're working from home most of the time, because, most of the things that I've learned have been by watching people, looking, listening, having contact with them, being in a meeting that I shouldn't be in, and et cetera.
Or just sitting out in the office and nobody.
Yeah, and just talking to someone and that sort of thing. But isolating, I mean, I think we have touched on social media and lots of things, how isolating it can be.
Yeah.
And I think then if you're taking the workplace out, which is one place that people can go to socialise without having a drink or being with their mates and stuff like that. And also, I think it's easy to talk to people. So if I worked with you here and I had a problem, I could talk to you about it. If I was at home talking to my girlfriend or my friend, they won't have the same context.
No, and it's also, I find it quite a lot harder to maintain people's attention through virtual calls than it is to have someone's attention in a room, because you're just millions of emails coming in, whatever, you're focusing on your phone.
They're always looking at something else below. There's a phone below.
They're not paying attention to the actual conversation. But in terms of how you're building your new businesses, because you've built them with hardly any money, now you've got a bit of cash, you're able to build them and scale them in a way that maybe people want to do that when they start out, or raise funding, I suppose, to do, right? So you did Birmingham City, you went to All Saints, you grew that. You then famously went into Gymshark, essentially. Yeah. You did a lot of change there. You were one of the catalysts to where they've got to now, albeit the one that maybe doesn't get the notoriety for it. Yep. How did you change that business so much over such a short period of time to take it from what Ben did through to the £1 billion it is now?
So when I met Ben and Lewis, back in the Bromsgrove David Lloyd gym back at the end of 2013. They had a small business that was 4.5 million and about 8 staff. And they would just ask me questions. And eventually got to the point where I would, I said, I'll do a day a month.
Yeah.
I'd got no waste at the time, which I was doing the nappy recycling. Hadn't really got much time, but I really liked the guys. There's something about it.
Yeah.
I don't know why I had to talk to them because, sometimes they're a bit of a knob, they can be, young guys sort of bouncing around the gym,
where did you meet them?
It was in David Lloyd.
Was it?
Yeah, David Lloyd Gym in Bromsgrove.
Okay.
That literally was the gym I went to and they went to. And a lot of it was they got a business that looked like it could take off, but didn't know what to do next. And were literally a couple of young guys winging it, literally winging it. So myself coming along, it was a case of I like foundations. I like to try and put the foundations in a business to sort of steady it along. If you're going to build a house, you can't build it without foundations.
No,
if you do, it's going to fall down.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got to build it quickly. You might want to build your shed and then you've got to knock it down and put something better up. So there isn't, always able to put them foundations in, but if you can possibly do it. So that was the idea, is we realized that they were earning enough money that we could do it. And, over time, that's what we did. Brought in Steve Hewitt. So, the story with Steve was Ben came to me one day and he hadn't literally slept for about 5 days.
Okay.
His supplier in China hadn't delivered. And I think they basically sold a lot of the stuff on site and really hadn't even landed, I think.
Right, okay. So they sort of done for
China. Sort of young guys. And he was really worried. So I said, we need to get some more suppliers. So a friend of mine knew a friend of mine who was supplying from Turkey, which could come by road. So it was okay. So we have a look at that. So we said, we used to have the meetings in my office, which was the no waste office at the time, which was up the road. And because they hadn't got any tables in the Gymshark place, it was just a warehouse.
Okay.
So I got these guys to come along and I'm there with Ben and Lewis and in walks Steve Hewitt.
Right.
He was the advisor for the other people.
Oh, okay.
The suppliers from Turkey.
Sure.
So we met. We realised we already knew each other. But again, he was from David Lloyd. He'd been at David Lloyd's gym in Bromsgrove at the same time.
Best place to network in the world.
So really, and when we finished the meeting, I said, Steve, can I have a word with you? So I had a word. I said, I didn't know you did this. Yeah, I do this. I'm ex-Reebok and blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
Really got talking, met him a couple of more times, got onto Ben and Lewis and said, you need this guy in the business.
Right.
You need him as an advisor because he can do the things that I don't do, the more commercial stuff.
Yeah.
So again, he was taken on as I think 1 day a week and then 2 days a week. And eventually we said, you need to be MD.
Wow.
And he was MD initially.
Okay. After how long?
Oh, a couple of 3 months.
Wow. 3 months.
We knew straight away. He's special.
Yeah.
Steve is one of the best operators I know.
And then they had the margins to be able to punt on things like that in terms of just patching people in at the early stages.
Yeah, we knew it was there. And the sales were coming in. So we knew we could do it. And, I asked them early doors a question. And they got a great lifestyle business. And I said, do you want this as a real lifestyle business? They were both driving at the time Audi R8 sports cars. So they did everything together. So if one had one, the other one had one.
I bet they were white, or were they black?
I think one was white, one was black,
or whatever.
Yeah,
with a black roof or something. Yeah,
and they would do that together. It was always the same because they were 50-50.
Fine. Was that the equity splits?
Yeah, it was at the time.
Was that a good decision for them?
Yeah, I mean, it was what they wanted at the time, but it was, again, I knew straight away that was a problem.
So what did you say to them? Because I've had 50-50.
We did a shareholders agreement.
Yeah, and we didn't.
The first thing I did.
We didn't have one, and it went completely Pete Tong.
Yeah.
50. It didn't work.
No.
It didn't work.
So that was one of the first things I did.
Yeah.
And I've actually got I've got the book was I used to write in.
Really?
With all the first meetings in.
Oh, that's good.
I've still got them.
Right.
I've still got all the meetings in a book, which is really cool.
Do you hoard and keep things like that? I know I personally.
Yeah, well, I found it by mistake. I found it in one of them, the drawers somewhere, and thought, well, that's old.
Yeah.
Got it out, and they're all there. I showed Ben and everything, and I've kept it.
Because we were doing our induction, weren't we? We did an induction history video for the new starters a few weeks ago, and I found from 2013 when I started my business plan for this business, and it brings back those memories, and you do see how far you've come.
Oh, we had all the people in and how much, and some of the plans, and
how much has come to fruition.
Yeah, the question. So I went back to that question was, what do you want? And they said, we want to be as big as Under Armour.
Okay.
I laughed at them.
Yeah.
But I understood their sort of hunger and dynamic that they wanted. So I immediately said to them, well, things will have to change. So you're going to go through loads of changes and you're going to have to expect all different things. It's not going to be your business where you're making every decision. You're going to have to hire people that are much better than you. It's a longer term view. All these different things you're going to have to master, which is, what we were working on after that. So bringing Steve in was one of those. I brought another guy in from the Huck Group, ex-Huck Group, which is Rich Chappell. Again, one of the best marketeers I know. And in fact, he's helped us with HERA. He's got something called the Growth Foundation now.
But he's heard of the Growth Foundation.
Really good operator. Really good. One of the best I know. So brought him in as well. Brought my insurers in. My accountants in that I knew. What else we got? All the various people that I knew that I could trust around us to basically build the foundations.
So they absolutely had nothing apart from a bit of cash.
They had an accountant who shouldn't have been an accountant. I don't think they had any insurance.
Did they not?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. They might have done on their cars, but on stock or anything.
Maybe not even on the cars, but
but it was a fun business to them. It was a laugh. They were earning money. They were having a great time. All the things that as a 19-year-old or whatever they were at the time really should be doing. They shouldn't be taking it too serious.
100%. So you patched in your team essentially, right? And
we built the team with them, and but it was people that I knew that I could trust immediately, rather than saying we tried an accountant that they'd been recommended again, who was driving a Lamborghini soft top.
Right. Okay.
So I thought,
he's clearly fiddling the books.
Can't quite be right somehow. That's not the style we want. So we went there initially. Myself and Steve walked in the door and immediately almost like walked out. And that's when we brought my accountant in, Philip Dorr, who's now the CFO at Gymshark. But just brought the people in we could trust so that we could actually get on with the business rather than thinking, right, we'll try these people and it might work or it might not work. I knew if I brought the accountants in, we could clean everything up, make sure it was right, get it straight. And then basically we could move on and we had good footings to stand on.
But it's interesting because they and you were lucky enough at that point to be able to do that. Like, you build those connections over time, you know what not to do because you personally have done it before, so they don't have to make that mistake again, right? In terms of what you did when you were starting up in your business career, how did you know who's the right person to keep hold of versus who you should get rid of?
Oh, that's really difficult. Trial and error. But again, I'm actually a massive believer in relationships and building partnerships. So there's a lot of people that I still know that I talk to if I need something that I've known for a long time. So for instance, now, if for some reason, so someone asked me about the nappy recycling a short while ago, and they wanted to look back into the business. So I sort of made 3 or 4 calls and introed them to the right people to talk about it. Because again, those people will take your call because again, you've just worked with them over time. You've had a good deal in. Everyone's earned some money. Because that's the secret. Everyone's
for free.
Got to earn. If the builder comes and does some work for you, he's not there for his health. He's there to earn some money. And hopefully, it's a fair deal, and you'll have him back again. The ones that want to earn too much just do it once and then you never see them again.
And in terms of the, I suppose, of the staffing side of things then, and knowing who a good person to hire is, because, back in the day you were just taking people on left, right and centre, and now it's slightly more structured in terms of how to hire for individuals. You've grown HERA pretty rapidly over the last sort of 3 to 6 months. How do you know that that person just there is perfect?
I learned a lot at Gymshark about just looking for the right things and asking the right questions.
And what are they?
For me, it's about getting their passion. You want them to be passionate about their job. So one of the first things I ask them is why. Why do you do what you do? Why do you want to do what you do? I always think it's about the why first. And,
Well, Simon Sinek said as much, did he?
Yeah, and I think that's probably where I got it from at the end of the day. I listen to him a lot. And again, this is about listening. I like taking bits from all different people. I don't like thinking someone like Tony Robbins is a guru that he's the only person you ever got to listen to. I love taking little bits from people.
That's why we started this podcast, so they can take from this and Diary of a CEO.
And the why for me is the first thing. Why do you do it? Why are you a graphic designer? And I think when you start to get answers like that, you even go into their personal life rather than just about why you want this as a job. Why did you do it and all that? And I think, that works really well for us. We gather that passion, and again, you're halfway there because the money will be negotiable. The money
do you
will
think
be
the money is a byproduct then of passion, or do you think that you are only passionate because of the money?
I think it's. I'm not saying it's equal, because some people it's not, but I think it sort of goes up and down. It varies with people.
Yeah.
You know, some people money is much more important and they see more value. Other times they'll do it for the passion. But I think for me, you have to do it for both.
Yeah.
I think because, you know, sometimes the passion will wane and the money will drive you on, or the money will drive you on, and you know, whichever way around.
And when do you stop though? When do you stop putting in the long hours? Because you said about Ben working around the clock because China weren't delivering. You've evidently done the same. I've done the same. Everyone does the same when they start. But when do you go, actually, I'm going to do 10 hours or 5 hours today rather than the 12 that I should, or 16 that you should be doing?
I think people have different, you know, for me, that doesn't work.
No.
And that's what my family are on to me at the moment about. You know, when I finished at Gymshark, you know, a couple of months ago, it was like, okay, you're only going to do 3 days now. And I do want to get more time with the family, but it's not a case of, there's no exact science to it. I think what people have to realize, I don't know many successful people that haven't worked really, really hard. And made real sacrifices in time. So even though from the outside of it, you know, you could look at Ben Francis and say, wow, what a lucky guy. You know, he works hard, you know, and has worked hard and has worked to better himself. He's a real good listener. Yeah. So from the outside, it looked like he's really had a real easy ride. You know, Steve and I in the background and a lot of staff around him and everything else. But that's not true. He has worked hard. I think you have to. I think it has to be about working hard. And I think when I used to look at it back in the day in Waste, I used to do 7 days a week then. That's what we did. And I used to think, well, the guys who close on a Saturday means I'm getting a day and a half or 2 days extra work than them. So I'm doing more. Yeah. I'm probably not much cleverer than they are. You know, I didn't go to uni. I haven't got any real massive qualifications besides. But
you're more intelligent maybe because you have had the life experience that they haven't had. So you know how to apply it.
I like to think so. I like to think that I've got a lot of life experience. But I think, you know, it was still apparent in early days, you know, the hard work. I've always worked really hard. Yeah. I like hard work. I feel it's fulfilling. I think you know, you put a good shift in. Yeah. And you think, well, I've done, you know, that's good. You know, maybe I haven't earned the fortune I wanted to this week or this day, but I know I've put the shift in.
You've moved the business forward a little, even a percent, for instance. But in terms of, and looking at ego for one, right, in terms of being an extrovert or an introvert, some of the most successful people are introverts. You look at Elon Musk, you look at Bill Gates, you look at Mark Zuckerberg, all introverts. Ben, I think, was an introvert, right?
He still is.
He's still, I mean, he's come out of his shell, slightly granted, but do you think egos can damage someone's success because they want to be perceived in a way that just simply they can't live up to, and that hits things?
Again, I think social media and the way things are at the moment have sort of enhanced that, because people are looking at certain people thinking, I want to be like that. Yeah. That's the way to do it. Look how successful they are, you know, and that's not always true. You know, for me, I think egos, it's one of the worst things. Yeah. I think get yourself grounded and work out what you want. And, you know, some people are naturally extroverts. I'm not, but I do it my way. And, you know, that's the way I'm okay with. I've reconciled that, you know, but other people do it a different way. I mean, I met Gary Vee.
Great guy.
On the Gymshark board. Yeah. And I had, you know, a sort of perception of him before I met him because of the way he's on certain things. And I was completely surprised and amazed. And he's a great guy. Because
he's perceived to be quite cocky, quite arrogant, quite out there. What's he actually like?
He's confident, but he's concise, intelligent, thoughtful. You know, nothing is, you know, when he's talking about something, he'll explain it to you. So I had real admiration when I met him, when I didn't expect it. And I like that. Yeah. You know, because I was like,
here we go.
Yeah. Really good. You know, gave me some great insights. I asked him some questions about a couple of things that really helped me now with HERA.
Such as?
Social media. Yeah. You know, he gave some insights into social media, which, you know, I didn't know. I passed them on to Georgia. She was like, okay, that's fantastic. I get it. And we can move on that, you know, and it was, you know, the way social media is going, and, you know, it's always on the move. It's a complete moving landscape.
Because he's very much into Web3, NFTs and crypto and that sphere and that space. And I've started to follow him more so over the last couple of years because I've got an invested interest in that world. Yeah. Do you think there's scope for HERA, for Gymshark, for brands like that to be virtual garments in the metaverse, in the virtual world?
I don't know enough about it.
Sure.
But what I do know is I'd like to know more.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I'll probably do is find the people that do know more and bring them on board, because I definitely think there's something. Correct. I just don't know what that is at the moment. And, I wouldn't sort of bullshit my way through it. But when I look at certain things, I can't quite understand it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But, early adopters, some things go, some things don't, you know. I mean, we've seen it with crypto and all 100%. Sorts of things. And, I went into crypto a very small amount. Myself and Steve Hewitt did it. We had a laugh with it.
What did you go in for? As in which currency?
It was Ethereum.
Okay, I mean,
we got in
that well.
It went down the pan. I sat with it for ages. As soon as it got to the number I got out.
Okay.
Because that was just me. It's like,
how long ago was that?
I got out about 12 months ago. It's gone up since.
It has gone up since.
So I should have stayed in. But it was one of them things. It was, I don't understand enough about it.
Yeah.
For me, it'll be about bringing the right people in to work with, to find out where we should be. And there's some real talented people out there. I'm talking to a guy at the moment about something slightly similar. He understands it a bit more. He's just really busy.
Aren't they all?
But yeah, for me, I definitely think so. I don't understand enough about it at this point.
I mean, going back to not understanding, at school, for instance, dyslexic and dyspraxic over here, ask questions, you get told you're stupid. In business, if you don't ask questions, you don't know what to do, if that makes sense. Yep. Are you fully comfortable sitting in a board meeting and going, I don't understand? Or do you try and bluff your way through these things?
I think occasionally you've got to bluff.
Yeah.
But I think it's better just asking the question. There's so much to know now. There's so much to know. And again, if you've got good people around you, they're willing to talk to you in a way that's not looking down on you because you don't know. But again, you don't have to know everything. So again, bringing people on that you can really, really trust, they're your arm. Instead of you knowing everything, you know enough. I think that trusting them is the big part, that they know what they're doing and you can move forward. And, if you look at what Ben, Lewis bowed out the business at a time, but Ben trusted myself and Steve to really, really help him with the business. And he has a low level of trust, by the way. So and that paid big dividends for him. And he was in an area that he didn't know and he trusted massively. And, but we're two honourable guys. So again, I think he was lucky in that sense. We weren't there to rip him off. Yeah. We were there to do the right thing. Steve's moral compass is sort of legendary in Gymshark, but it's the right thing to do. So, I think, you don't have to know everything, but trust the people that do know and work with them.
And they trusted you, or hedged brilliantly in you, because it's now $1 billion, $1.2 billion, something like that. The day that it got to that point, what did it feel like for you? Because not many people ever get involved in or build a unicorn, quite frankly.
Well, we didn't really think about it as a unicorn. That wasn't until afterwards when it sort of came out that it was. It wasn't like, we can be a unicorn. It was, we were building a business we knew was really good. It was good for the people in it and everyone around it. And, when we decided to, go in with looking on the finance side for people with, the experience there, like GA and all the rest of them, it was not in our mind that we'd got something that was called a unicorn. No. So, but when we got to the point of we knew the valuation and we knew what it was worth, something to be really proud of.
Hugely.
Yeah, we were like astounded because it had literally come from, we were there at the start. It was 4.5 million, 8 people that were friends and family, a bit like HERA, to be honest. About the same size.
Exactly.
It's almost like that. Yeah. So to do what we did, but, we had a lot of the rub of the green on certain things, but, there's a lot of hard work and a lot of people there helped put the shift in, there's a lot of, I could just run the names off because there's a lot of hardworking people there. Yeah. So definitely not one, definitely not Steve, me and Ben, but everyone else involved. That was a really proud day when we did it, because it was like that secured ourselves and our family forever and everything else, and thinking, okay, fine, now we can move on. Yeah. And now we can take it to where it needs to go.
And I suppose to go back to your earlier point about the why bother raising the money at that point? Why bother going for the valuation? Why not just carry on growing it as you were?
Raise money when you don't need it. That was the one thing, and it was a case we actually didn't need the money at the time. The money that was raised, if you look at Ben's videos and stuff, was taken out by ourselves.
Yeah.
So it was de-risking ourselves for everything we'd done, because again, it was like you sometimes was pinching yourself that this was going the way it was going year on year. The growth and the profits. So again, I think it was taking the market at the time when it was at a good point. If it was today, it wouldn't be so good.
Yeah.
So it was just that time. We started it before COVID, went into COVID, and then sort of, we looked at when COVID came, we were like, okay, we've got this money in the bank. How long are we going to last? And then a week later, everything takes off.
Yeah.
So again, element of luck in that sense, in being in the right place, right time. But yeah, for us, it was de-risking for ourselves. As that sort of, I suppose, that recognition. That's what, you're in business for that as well. We're in business to make money at the end of the day.
For sure. And I mean, when you de-risked from Gymshark, you've now bought the brand that you're currently wearing, HERA.
Yeah.
You bought that in late 2021.
Yeah, October.
You bought that off Ash White, who initially had an offer from Julian Dunkerton at Superdry, I think, a couple of years prior, but declined that. Now, similar to Gymshark, 4 and a bit, 5 million quid roughly, I'm assuming was what it was turning over. Is that right? You want to scale that to 100 million, so a tenth of what you scaled Gymshark to. That's still ballsy to be able to take a business from 5 million to 100 million in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, we think it's a strong brand. I mean, Ash did really well with his very limited resources. And he came to Gymshark, it's documented, to sell the business back a while ago.
Is that right?
Yeah, 2018.
To sell it to you guys at Gymshark?
Yeah. Okay. And we offered him a deal and he didn't take it.
What was the deal
then? He got the supplier. It's, again, well documented that he got an issue with and had some debt.
Yeah.
And, he didn't really know how to get out of that, and he was basically servicing that debt. And it's a well-documented story from his point of view. We offered him a deal and he didn't take it. So when he came back, in the sort of mid-21, that was... Gymshark didn't want it. I asked Ben, said, "You any interest in it?" No.
This was prior to your exit.
Yeah,
from Gymshark.
Yeah, but it was always planned. My exit was planned anyway. My exit was planned for January.
Right.
It only went over till March because I was doing a building, a construction project. So again, that was all planned and ready. So when I said, "Well, I might look at it," Ben was like, "Yeah, go ahead." So yeah, I looked at it. I mean, again, it's a ballsy number. Yeah. And but we believe the brand is strong enough. I mean, I spoke to Ben. Ben's words to me were, "That's one of the strongest brands I know," because, the things that have happened to it along the way, and it's still there. So, yeah, we believe we can do it. My girls, Holly and Georgia, they're showing great strength, promise, and, I believe we can do it.
Well, I mean, you patched them both in, didn't you? One was head of marketing, or head of buying, I should say, and the other's chief brand officer. And it must be quite nice to patch your daughters into the business, knowing that actually, they're looked after, you're looked after. You just have some fun as a family, almost.
Yeah, we always wanted to work together. We've been talking about it for ages. So again, initially it was, we'd probably start a brand up of some description. So this is like getting on a moving target, really. And I've always liked the HERA brand. I've always thought it was really strong. And the opportunity came along and it was like, okay, girls, this is going to cost some money to do. We're going to pay a fair price for it. But it's an opportunity. And they just absolutely just jumped at it. So, for me, I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity to work with them. I'm going to be I'll be hands-off-ish.
Yeah.
So again, I'm in the background, helicopter view as I look at it, bringing the people in. So Rich Chappell and Hope Growth Foundation have been in with us, setting the foundation. So a lot of foundations in. I'll use this year because, the end of last year was just sort of, getting our feet in the door. Yeah. But yeah, we got high hopes for it.
And it's 100% equity that you've got in that, is that right? So you haven't diluted anything?
No, so initially I bought 70 off Ash.
Right.
And then within a month, he decided he didn't want to keep his 30. Well,
this is it. I saw 3 weeks ago at the point of recording him in a pub up the road. And I think that was near the point that he actually fully got out because a couple of mutuals were sort of alluding to that. But I thought, rightly or wrongly, he was pushed out. Was it he wanted out?
No, he he came to me and he didn't quite like the way we were going.
Right.
But, from my point of view, we'd got 70% and we'd got a plan. He didn't quite agree with that.
Yeah.
And decided that, okay, do you want to buy the rest of the 30? And for me, it was perfect. I've always wanted 100.
Yeah.
He didn't want to sell it initially on the first part. But, Ash has got his own ideas, but, he couldn't put them into play.
Yeah.
Because it was our business, my business.
Do you think he was wrong to throw the towel in? Based on what your history has been like? And
time will tell.
I think.
But I would say yes.
Yeah.
But Ash will, take the money he's got now and, he will do something. I don't quite know what. He's a talented lad.
Well, he built it from nothing. What was it, 21 grand back in the day?
You've got to give him credit. No doubt. And he had a lot of things go against him.
Yeah, 100%.
We all make our own decisions. Yeah. So, he has to take that responsibility. But, he had a tough time and he still got through and kept going and going and going. So I've got admiration for him there. We're different characters.
100%.
And, he will do something and be successful in it, whatever it might be.
Well, I think it goes back to that. He's very, I'm going to say, egotistical to a certain extent. He likes to be perceived in a way that maybe showcases him in a style that is more successful than one maybe, for instance, Lamborghinis outside Conor McGregor, whatever it might be. And you are very introverted in terms of, being perceived differently.
Yeah.
So do you think maybe that was a negative? Maybe he did bite off more than he can chew back in the day with HERA because he was so cocky?
I think he was, a little bit naive. Was probably the right word.
Yeah.
I think he took on a persona that, is Ash.
Yeah.
I think he's just a little bit of naivety didn't help him. And he would gladly tell you he didn't have a Paul and Steve.
Yeah.
And that's his biggest issue. He didn't have a Paul and Steve to help him not do those things. So, I think if he'd have taken on the deal back in 2018, HERA wouldn't have been for sale in 2021.
No.
But I think more naivety. I mean, he's his persona, but everyone's different, aren't they? Everyone has to be different. And
huge respect to Ash for building it for essentially nothing. Dropped out of school and built it. And exited, and that's really
he's now got money to do.
Really difficult.
Anything that he wants to do.
Yeah.
And he'll have the money that he didn't have to start HERA. So whatever he's going to do, he's got a head start.
What was the exit value for him? Do we know? Was it 9 million?
No.
Less.
No. It
South than us. I suppose in terms of not having a Paul and Steve, just to pick up on that point, having an NED is critical. I find quite important anyway. We've just taken on some NEDs, for instance, some advisors. How do you go about finding the right NEDs for the business? Because there's not a database out there like Tinder where you can swipe and find someone that's perfect.
It's really difficult.
Maybe
I think. Sorry,
maybe there should be a Tinder for NEDs.
Actually, you're not. It's a good shout. I mean, I've been contacted since during Gymshark, and then obviously when people knew I was moving on, I've had loads and loads of people contact me. I think you've got LinkedIn, social, and all the rest of them to try and trawl through, but put the work in and try and find like-minded people. I'm doing something at the moment with people. So I've took on several NEDs, which I can tell you about in a minute, but and chairman. But I'm doing something whereby I'm giving myself 2 hours a week, 4 half-an-hour slots, where if someone contacts me on social or LinkedIn, I can't fit everyone in, but I'm doing like a half-an-hour Zoom or Teams with them. And literally they're ranging from someone in Cincinnati who's got a little clothes business who just wants to talk about some things to people who've got a business and actually want me to invest, but also just me to give them some advice.
Yes.
I'm really enjoying that, to be honest.
Do they pay you for that? Or is that
No, I just do it. I'm just doing it. I think it's just that little bit of giving back. It feels like people are asking me, so I can either just say, no, piss off. Yeah, I'm not going to be bothered. I haven't got time.
Yeah.
Or I thought, do you know what? Why not? And I'm liking it. I've done 4 this week. Wow, I do 4 each week. I pick my time. They've got to fit in with my time. So if they start getting iffy, can't fit this in, can't fit that in, then sorry, mate. Then I'm moving on. But I've probably got another 3 weeks lined up already. Yeah. To do that, and that's people reaching out. In all various
and
ways.
That's on LinkedIn?
That's on LinkedIn, it's on Instagram, and it's on anything else.
So in terms of if people wanted to reach out to you, what are your handles? How do they reach out for advice?
I'm on Instagram. I don't want my handle to be Paul _twice Richardson, I think.
Twice Richardson.
Yeah, underscore. I think 2 underscores. Yeah, not twice, as in TWICE.
Yeah.
So that'll be on there. It's open. So I've left that open at the moment. I was private, but I've opened it up. And now LinkedIn's pretty easy. I'm on there.
Yeah.
I've got Twitter. I'm not using it very much, but I do want to maybe start using it again.
Yeah, well, it's just an interesting concept that Musk just bought. So do you think that's a good move?
I think it's really interesting, from the point of view of free speech, etc. But obviously, I'm a fan of free speech.
Yeah.
I think people have an opinion, and I think that's okay. And you think you should be able to. I was listening to Piers Morgan the other day on Stephen Bartlett's podcast, and he's very interesting about opinions. And actually, I agree with him. It's okay to have an opinion. You don't have to argue or disagree or, have a fight.
Yeah.
But also, I think, there's far too much hate and, racial and 100%. All sorts of different things going on that really is unnecessary.
Yeah.
And I find it really difficult to believe that the big guys who own all those sort of media don't have a way to stop it, because they can maneuver everything else you
100%,
do.
100%.
If you talk long enough in front of your Apple phone, you'll get an advert.
Yep. Yeah, you will.
Some description. You find something weird and keep saying it, you will get an advert come through.
You will. If you just play this podcast loud enough, you get a load of HERA adverts come through. In terms of going back to that Twitter conversation, and again, Gary V earlier and what he said about social media, Musk said at the Met Gala, and the point of recording it was 2 days ago, that he wants to start to charge businesses and government organizations a small fee to be on Twitter, but all the people that just use it as individuals, they can have that for free. Do you think that's going to be a good move, or do you think that's going to make businesses like HERA pull off?
I think it could probably help. I think it maybe legitimize it, if it's done correctly and it's not maneuvered. I don't mind things that are up front. You know what you stand, you either pay it or you don't.
Yeah.
What I don't like is when it's done behind the scenes for whatever the reason. And, I'm not a Zuckerberg fan for the things that happen behind the scenes, and I think they're a bit disingenuous. But if someone says, well, it's £5 to join that, you either pay your £5 to join, or you say, no, I'm not paying £5 and don't join.
Yeah.
But I think if someone tells you, come on, join, and then take £5 out your bank account you didn't know, then that's disingenuous.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. I think businesses will stomach it. I think if there's enough users on there and there's enough.
Yeah, I think if it helps do things, and that's the only thing, is people taking money and doing something good with it, whatever, or doing the right thing with it, being open and as transparent as you can. Because I think people say, oh, we're completely transparent, and that's absolute bollocks.
100%.
I think you have to be as transparent as you can. We're a completely transparent company.
Yeah.
What do you earn? What do you earn? And what do you earn?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it goes back to
can't tell each other.
That B
Corp not transparent, are you then?
Well, exactly. I mean, with HERA, I suppose, being transparent, you were, I suppose, transparent to your daughters about how much it was going to cost and what you were going to do, and the scale and the pain that's going to maybe happen. But in terms of those that were at the company that you've now chopped because you got rid of a load of people, but also hired quite a considerable amount in a short period of time, how transparent to them and Ash were you when you took it on?
I think completely. So the guys that worked for Ash were mainly family and friends.
Right.
And, we decided in the transaction that wasn't a good idea to move forward. So, it was an open and honest conversation, and, the dues that they were due were paid.
Yep.
So there was no one there with any, didn't get something that they should have done. It was in the transaction with the lawyers. The new people come on, we're pretty transparent with everything.
Nice.
And we've just done a playbook. Okay. So very early. I think we need to find a new word for playbook, because it always seems like, it's bad connotations. Yeah. But really, we've done it very early. So the idea is this is a journey we'd like to go on, and we've played it to them and talked to them about it, and they really like the fact is we've got train tracks to go on. Yeah. We've got a journey to go on.
Yeah,
and that journey will probably change a little bit along the way. So it's not fixed in concrete, but we've already done that in readiness, and they really like the idea of what we're putting forward. And that's been worked between ourselves and the Growth Foundation, but unusual for a smaller company that we are.
Yeah.
But again, for us, it lays out where we want to go, what we want to do, and the why.
Well, you're in that sort of idealistic point, I suppose, and looking at Musk, he can afford to lose all that cash on Twitter, and he's absolutely fine. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that you've got the same amount of liquid, but arguably you have enough liquid to take a punt and go, if it doesn't work, it's annoying.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of being able to scale HERA, Are you just simply chucking everything at it to almost make no margins over the first few years to get that notoriety and then pull back immediately before sale? Or how are you structuring that?
No, it's a long-term view.
Right.
So foundations going in. Mm-hmm. So, we've got more people now than we need, but we know that when we launch all the new collections towards the end of the year, they'll all be okay. Yeah. We need them now to get those collections ready and to do all the work in between time. Mm-hmm. Office-wise, the same. Just taking on some new offices. There will be 3 or 4 times the size of what we need today, but they're ready for the growth. Yeah. So I'm fortunate to be able to have the capital behind me to help lay those foundations. My girls are tight. They sort of like they don't spend money unless they need to. So they sort of keep me in check. Yeah. But for me, it's about, having that vision of saying, okay, we could stay in the little office we are now and it's great, but you can't talk. If you have a phone call, you have to walk outside and do all this, or we can get a nice office where we can grow into it. And that means it's a one pain that I've taken away from them. So the idea for me is take away the pain that they can grow fast and not have them bumps in the road. So again, things that I know come up where, oh shit, we're so busy. Now we've got to change office. Yeah. Well, if I change it now, it won't even matter because I'll do it. Yeah, I'll have it done, and they'll just move into it.
And that's such a good place to be in, Paul, because not many people can be in that place. Or at least when you're raising funding or you're raising investment, and you go, I want a forecast for the next 3 years, and I want a nice big office, and I want too much space, and X, Y, and Z, too much stock. People will go no because it's too risky. But it's your own money, so you can do that. But if someone came to you with that proposal and they went, I've got a clothing brand, I want an office 3 times the size, I want too much stock, I want to put the foundations in, but it might not work, but I want you to fund it, what would you say to that?
Yeah, but I know mine's going to work. There's a difference. My confidence is it's going to work. So it's the way I look at it, it's a calculated risk. Yeah. Because even if, say, for argument's sake, and it won't happen, this is a legacy business. This is a business we'll keep. Yeah. This is ongoing. This
family business.
A family business they want the girls to have. Not saying at some point we won't do a GA type scenario where we take some money out.
De-risk it.
De-risk it a little bit. But the idea is to build it into a decent sized brand. And 100 million was plucked out of the air as it's a great number. Yeah. We will just grow this as fast as possible, but with the right foundations and in the right way.
Because Gymshark was sportswear, this is streetwear, right? So it's not even competing in that way.
No, definitely not.
Will you ever cross over and go into sportswear, or are you going to keep it exclusive?
No, where we're going at the moment is it's currently a menswear brand. Yep. So the idea for us, we've got a menswear brand. By September, we'll have a women's wear brand. And we'll have footwear and we'll have accessories coming in. So our growth is all around the streetwear and maybe going slightly smarter. The women's wear will be different to what we've got now, obviously, because it's just purely menswear. So new markets opening, new people. I'm hugely interested in Gen Z. Yeah. So I want to really play in that area. I think it's a massive growth area. I'm really interested in the used market. So I joined chairman of HERA. Helping reuse, which is a used clothing brand.
Do you think Depop, etc., and that kind of thing?
It's going to explode. It's the fastest growing part of the sort of fashion market.
Because I noticed the other day that your daughter Holly posted that you're now blue tick verified on TikTok. 100 followers. That updated.
Yeah, I know. It's mad. We applied. They wanted us to do. They asked us.
Did they?
Yeah, they asked us to go on. So we did it, and we're just literally now starting to work at it. Again, it's been. The few months have been really hard work for the guys. So, now it's a case of saying we just put an ad on for a social media specialist. So, and it's mainly around TikTok and anything else that's coming along. So we want someone really good. Yeah. So, that's the next thing for us, apart from a couple of other hires. Yeah. And then we're generally okay for this year.
Fine. And that's you sources up until 23 then?
Yeah, basically. That's the idea.
So in 23, what's that growth trajectory look like? Are you going to pump in... Because not stores, it's all going to be online, I'm assuming e-commerce.
All online. Again, this is all about the collections and having the clothes. I mean, it's been quite limited. Really we're looking at jeans, some shorts, hoodies, and T-shirts. It's literally been the brand for quite a while now.
Started with skinny jeans.
So the idea is just to expand all of that from the menswear side. So it was black, white, and grey for ages with Ash. And
I like the green though.
Yeah, we've got all the colour now. Colours come in. There's a new launch tonight. So quite a big drop, and there's a launch every month now.
Okay.
And then in September it just expands and explodes with the women's wear, and then in the new year footwear.
Right.
So yeah, the thing we need is the stock to put in to do it now. And then we'll get. The sales will roll from the people that we're using in terms of influencers and the way we're doing it, which is slightly different.
Yeah.
Again, Ash did it in a way with putting a T-shirt on Conor McGregor, and that's fantastic. That's a way of doing it.
Yep.
But we believe there's a slightly different way of doing it now, and that's the place we're going, more longevity, a bit more around what's interesting about people rather than just the look of them.
Yeah.
So we're looking at more longevity with our sort of influencers, ambassadors and things like that.
Okay. And I mean, in terms of influencers and ambassadors and again, garment brands, right? Everybody who wants to go into business, I say everybody, lots of people that start a business in a world of clothing, right? They go, I'm going to buy some T-shirts and put some branding on it and happy days. Most of them fail. Most of them don't work. But it's almost a low barrier to entry because you can just shove it online and sell it, right?
Yeah, especially now with Shopify.
100%.
Yeah.
In terms of if you were to start HERA and it wasn't Ash's and you hadn't bought it and you were sitting here without the cash that you've got, what would you do to be able to take that business off?
It's really hard at the moment because there's so many of them. Literally, they are everywhere. And most of them are some sort of copy of something else. There's very few that I see that are actually unique. Sort of unique. And I think that's the way I would go. I think uniqueness. I think you've got to have a hook. You've got to have something special, and you've got to think really hard what that is. Just because you've got organic T-shirts doesn't cut it anymore because, everyone's going to have organic T-shirts.
Yeah.
What's the story? What's the why? What's around it? So I think...
what's the why of HERA then?
We've got some new stuff coming out, which I maybe can't mention now. The playbook's all around looking deeper.
Okay.
It's about what's behind things rather than, for instance, a model who, looks fantastic, 6'2", tanned, etc. But actually he's a landscape gardener.
Okay.
Or he bird watches or she bird watches or whatever it is. We want to look a little bit deeper at things and just, that's where we're going sort of into the less superficial. So there's a lot of things like that we're going down. And
it's interesting. Have you seen the new social platform Be Real?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't quite know yet. Again,
I agree.
I see so many things. I need to talk to people and find out from the people that really, really
But it's great for Gen Z, going back to your plan.
Well, the Gen Z, you look at some of the things that are going on with them is they've got no, how can I put it? They don't judge. I think
they're a lot more accepting.
They're a lot more accepting of what someone's done or, etc. And that's really important. And I've done quite a few studies on their behaviour with Gymshark when we did The Office. So I was doing it from the workplace point of view, what they wanted. So I engaged with a few agencies and I'm still linked with them now. So I want to do more work with them over time. So we probably won't massively engage this year. But again, in 2023, this year is about getting these collections out, getting ourselves known on the market so we've got more to sell, and then basically start to really develop the brand in terms of where we want it to go.
Interesting, because you've rebranded recently anyway from HERA Clothing, HERA London to HERA Clothing. Yeah. Why was that? Was that for scalability purposes?
Yeah, it's a bigger. I mean, linking it to London. There's a lot of people do that, and I don't quite know.
Not even from London.
Why? Yeah, we're not from there. It's like I just wonder why. So again, for us, it was about clothing and what could we do different, and that was just a bigger. It sounded like it was a bigger brand and it was more encompassing for us, rather than HERA London didn't really sell you what it did. So for us, clothing actually works. Actually, we are a clothing company. Footwear will come in and accessories, but generally it's clothing. But it's about building that community in a bigger brand. Yeah, the bigger story around it. Just selling clothes is not enough anymore.
No.
and bringing in the sustainability will come in, all that will happen. All the things we want to happen will happen, and they'll take a little bit of time, but we're definitely on the journey.
And you're still hustling, you're still kind of, getting involved in the business more so than maybe you should be.
Yeah, I mean, most of the things I'll be doing will be one-offs. Like I'm doing the office. I'll go in and we've just been this morning looking at the managed accounts and the budgets and things like that. So I'm just helping Holly understand some of the things and how I might do it. Then I'm going to leave her to it, and then I'll go back to her in a couple of months and we'll talk it through. I'm very hands off. I have a lot of trust.
Yeah,
I'm not an interferer. I don't want to interfere with it. I ask loads of questions.
Yeah, rightly so.
And I know when my daughters don't answer me, I know that what it means is.
But it must be so much easier, Paul. It must be so much easier, Paul, to trust your family than it is to trust 3 people that you've patched in the same roles that your daughters are doing.
It is, because you've known them all your life.
The blood. Exactly.
Definitely it is. But they've got to be capable.
Sure.
And if I didn't think they're capable, I've told them if they're not capable.
Would you get rid of them?
I sacked my brother once.
Okay, but would you sack your daughters?
I'd have to. We'd have to do
it's
something.
easier to get rid of your brother or sister.
Yeah, I don't know. It might be a hard one, but we'd have to have a chat. We'd have to definitely, yeah. Because again, if the brand's going to go where they want it to, there might come a point when they have to want to go aside and let someone else do it better than them. I'm not sure, but
what
again,
track record have they got though?
I definitely know. Well, they work really, really hard.
Good.
They've always worked, and they've had a private school background, and some people haven't with that background. So they've always worked really hard and got stuck in. Holly worked at MyProtein. She worked at Gymshark.
Okay. She worked at MyProtein as well.
He worked at MyProtein, flannels.
Okay.
And then where was the last one? She worked at. The last time she was just working for Halfords.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
So she's done a few jobs on the buying side, but has got more knowledge than just what she was doing. She needed to do more.
But this is the first time she's been actually involved in something that's
given charge.
She's got skin in the game to a certain extent.
But when she was at MyProtein, she was dealing with the top people there.
Yeah.
She was trusted. She helped build the sportswear part of it. The fitness brand. Clothing.
Oh, she's developed that.
Yeah, she really helped do that. Yeah, from like low millions to 30 million or something like that.
Well, that's good return. That's good growth. And how important then, Paul, is it for you to have something you can leave behind to your daughters, to your family?
Everything I'm doing now, I've got several things that I do. I've invested in. So I've got some forestry. I've got a forest in Scotland. I've got one in Scotland, 200 acres in Scotland. So I've got 200 acres in Warwickshire.
What's the point of that?
Just legacy.
That's it.
So for me, it's legacy. So for me, it's about if we want to look at a sustainability and carbon, I can do it from my own forests rather than have to buy someone in. Yeah. It's legacy. I'll never want to sell it. The idea is just
why would you
leave it there? They won't make any more land. I've got my farm at home, which is not a working farm, but again, another 200 acres.
Seems like everyone from Gymshark bought farms.
Yeah.
It's a rite of passage.
Yeah. Ben bought, I gave Ben the details of the one he's bought, actually.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's that legacy of thinking, okay, fine, that's what's there. And the businesses are the same. The investments I've made in other businesses are more long-term. I've got several, got Energym. I've got Arcs Alliance, which is cybersecurity. Yeah. So for me, the long term, it's about legacy, and HERA's that as well. Yeah. Hopefully, this becomes a big business that the girls make into the family business and becomes their family as well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, isn't it, how you've come from a family of, entrepreneurs, for instance, and your dad left you a legacy. Your dad made you some cash. That's great. Yeah. And now you're returning that favor to your daughters, which must be incredible. And what do you hope that they'll go on to do when Paul is gone?
I want them to do the same. Family's really important. And for me, drive good values to your children. With my children, Holly and George, have got good values. Yeah. They don't expect. They've worked hard. So I want them to do the same. I've got a grandson, Leo. Okay. He's a little character already. So, Holly will drive the same values into him, and hopefully he'll be as good a person as they are. And it'll just carry on, and I think you can make different decisions when this is a long-term thing rather than short-term. And, this isn't something I want to be pumping money into hand over fist for many years. I want it to be successful. I want it to stand on its own 2 feet. That's for sure. And they know that. And
they're not going to take it for granted. And for people that are starting out in business that haven't got anything, or indeed are being given something, what's the one piece of advice that you'd give an individual that wants to scale a company?
It's all about working hard.
Yeah.
For me, it's working hard, have resilience, and I think that's difficult in today. I don't know that people have, been lying under a truck that's filthy dirty, that's, got rats running around and, been there in the cold and etc. So it's different today. But I think mental resilience is a big thing at the moment, and you've just got to build that. So, but for me, having the resilience is something, because you're going to get knocked down. You're going to fail so many times.
100%.
You're going to fail so many times, and that's as simple as it is. And if you're just going to give up, then you're not built for business. Then go and get a job.
How do you mentally cope? I mean, how do you mentally cope when someone goes no, or you fail, or you cock up, or you make a big mistake? How do you get up in the morning and go, today's going to be all right? I know you said about moving the business on 1% every day.
It's just another day, isn't it? It's another day that you're up, and it's different to yesterday.
Have you ever wanted to give up?
No,
never.
No, you can't.
Never in a million years.
I've probably been on the edge of sort of why am I doing this? Sometimes, but no, because you're so lucky. There's so many people who are so much worse off than you, and if this is just you've lost a few £1,000 or a few £1,000 or whatever it is, or a business has failed, and so what's the worst? I'm not going to jump off a bridge.
No.
That's just not what I'm going to do. I'm going to get back up again, and show myself. I'm not too worried about what other people think. I just want to show myself that I can do it. Yeah. And yourself is so important, and the old cliche of be the better self or better every day. Yeah. It is a cliche, but it's true.
It is.
You know, that's what you should be striving for, just to be a better self.
And if we wanted to come on that journey with HERA, for instance, the listeners, me, the guys in the studio, want to, join Holly and join yourself on the growth of HERA, where can we join you and buy the product? How do we get involved?
Yeah, obviously we're online. Yeah, fully. I mean, it's just look. I mean, HERA Clothing comes straight up. That's the only place we're going to be.
Never going to open up in stores.
Oh, I'd say never. We said that at Gymshark,
or even supply stores.
There's a few ideas that are a little bit different that I want to explore. I like the mixture of used and new, and different places. And again, I think sometimes I'll use a pop-up as they used to use it. There's different things like that happening at the moment. Yeah. For me to be in Selfridges, I'm not really bothered. No. It could happen. It may happen for a reason, but it'll have to be for a reason, not just for ego. If there's a financial reason or a strategic reason, then we'll look at it. But no, all online, and that's where we'll stay.
Perfect. Well, wish you the best luck.
And social, obviously.
Social
e-commerce.
Maybe Twitter, maybe Twitter and TikTok. Yeah, be real. Who knows? But no, honestly, Paul, love it. Love the brand. Think you've got a bit of a steal there, quite frankly. And look forward to seeing it grow over the next couple of years.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not listen to a few more and click subscribe? This podcast was produced by PinPoint Media, and I'm Oliver Bruce. I hope we can speak again soon. Take care.